This is the Ted Wallison Podcast. Brought to you by Helenda's, the meat people. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortino's, and Foodland locations. Helenda's, the way sausage should taste. And Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. And now, here's Ted Wallison.
Hi there, welcome. I'm Ted Wallison. Thank you very much for picking up your podcast machine thingy and bringing us on. I appreciate you being here. And you know what? If I were my next guest, I would open up by saying hello, but I'm not. But I'm happy that you have joined us. I'll explain that in just a minute. And I hope you do enjoy what you're about to hear. And if you do, let us know it. Or if you don't, let us know. You can get a hold of me at Ted Wallison on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook as well. Tell your friends about us as well. And if you follow us, we'll pop up every week just like that. You won't even have to go searching for us. It's that easy. My special guest today has been an analyst for the past 25 years on the Toronto Raptors broadcasts on TSN. And for his work, he has won 3 times a Canadian Screen Award for Best Sports Analyst. And he has just released his first Christmas album titled Hellooo and Happy Holidays.
I'll be home for Christmas. You can plan on me. Please have snow and mistletoe and presents on the tree. Christmas Eve will find me where the love light gleams. I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dream.
Please welcome to Jack Armstrong. Jack, welcome. It's a pleasure having you on the podcast. I appreciate you taking the time.
Ted, it's my pleasure, an honor, and a privilege to be on with you. You're a legendary figure, and my first time being on with you, so very, very excited. Hope to do it again sometime.
That would be my honor. Let's talk about your album and how this all came to be. I mean, this is not your first album, though. You recorded an album years ago called the Canadians, or the Comedians, that you hosted.
No, we did from Brooklyn to Toronto. Back, Eric Smith and I, my colleague on the radio, we did something that we kind of threw together pretty quick and raised money for charity. And this one is a little bit more extensive from a planning perspective. The folks at Comedy Records reached out to me probably 3 or 4 years ago and asked me to do this. So it's been in the works for quite a while. And then obviously with the pandemic, we had to keep pushing it back. I had a great time doing the first gig with Eric and putting that out. We had a lot of fun. And so this was something that we kind of worked on for a few years and with the guys with Comedy Records. And here it is now. So they got vinyl, all sorts of stuff. And it's an exciting thing. I mean, basketball has brought me joy, Ted, and music's always brought me joy, and particularly Christmas. And so I thought, what better way to give back than to do something like this?
Hellooo and Happy Holidays, it's called, with proceeds going to the MLSE Foundation and the Special Olympics. What can people expect on this? Are you singing on this? Have you got choirs with you? Have you got any of the Raptors performing? Is there a certain guy named Drake make an appearance?
Well, I chatted actually with Drake about it last week. He was sitting courtside and he jumped on the air with Matt and I for a little bit. So if I ever do something again, maybe I collaborate. Two great artists. Well, one great, one lousy. That being me, collaborating. But No, it's just me and the Comedy Records Band, a bunch of musicians that are very talented, and a few young ladies that have beautiful voices that are backup singers. And we did 2 days of rehearsal in April.
Mm-hmm.
We did 2 days of recording, 2 full days in May, late May, because the album is on vinyl. So people love vinyl. People love having, a lot of
Yeah.
people have the record players. And so we had to get it done by early June so it could get to press. And obviously, people can download it, upload it, whatever you want to call it. And again, as you mentioned, it's a charitable thing. And so we have what is it, 14 songs on the album, and then I did two little narrations as well. I did one, the famous letter. I think it was 1898. The New York Sun, young lady Virginia O'Hanlon writes a letter to the editor about the existence of Santa Claus, and it's one of the most famous letters ever written. It's in the newspaper, as we know, all over the world. So I read that, and then I did a basketball version of "Twas the Night Before Christmas," so
Oh,
that was
excellent.
fun. And then everything else was singing. So it was just a really fun project.
Did you think at all about approaching Coach Nick Nurse, because he's a musician, he's a guitar player, piano player. In fact, has a foundation that benefits kids in terms of sports and music.
Well, actually, I spoke to Nick about it. I'm having a concert, Danforth Music Hall, and I asked him to join us. Unfortunately, he's not available that night. We have a game the night before, and we have a game the next night, so he's kind of tied up. But he was excited about the fact that I'm doing it, and he's a whole lot more talented than me, as you said, being able to play a few different instruments, and he's a music connoisseur aficionado, and I'm just a novice. But hopefully, if we ever do it again, I could get him to join me if his schedule works.
Yeah, is Christmas a special time in Jack Armstrong's household?
Yeah, it always has been. It's been since I was a little kid. I just think the excitement of it. I mean, my mom's 95.
Wow.
She was joking about it the other day because she had an opportunity to hear the album, and she was talking about how I'm the youngest of four boys, how I was probably the most excited of my brothers in terms of getting the tree up, hanging stockings, putting cookies out for Christmas Eve, decorating the windows of the house, the whole bit. That was like a big deal to me, and it still is.
Hmm.
And my kids are grown up now, so that they're all scattered about, and so it's a little different in terms of decorations and what you do in terms of preparation. But to me, it's just a really cool thing.
How about Christmas on the road? Is that come into play? I know that the year after the Raptors won, they played on Christmas Day. Was that the first time that you had to work Christmas Day?
I actually didn't do that game. I was
Okay.
off that day. But the previous time we played on Christmas Day, there was only twice the Raptors have ever done it, and that other time was in New York at Madison Square Garden when we had Vince Carter. So I did work that particular Christmas Day. So I'm not going to lie to you, it's tough. But as you know, Ted, show business, and that's what we're in. There are no days off. And you know what? There's a lot of people that have to work on Christmas Day, and we're not the only people. So we're very blessed to do what we do. I've traveled a lot on Christmas Eve. Like this year, I'll be traveling on Christmas Eve. We're in Cleveland on the 23rd. Then I got to travel the next day, and New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. I mean, we've all been there and done that. But it's one of those things that the NBA does do a great job with, Christmas Day and all the games. And just like the NFL does a great job with U.S.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving Day,
Hmm.
people sitting around watching football, I think the same could be said for the NBA.
Jack Armstrong is my special guest. So you're with the Raptors and they're playing at Madison Square Garden Christmas Day, which is kind of like in your hood, as it were, because you were born in Brooklyn. So there's a sense of feeling like you're sort of at home.
Yeah, actually, it was interesting. We played middle of afternoon. I'll never forget. My mom and I, my mom, this is a number of years ago, she was up for Christmas, before Christmas, and her and I flew Christmas morning at like the earliest flight you could take. And I got into New York, and she went in one taxi, and I went in a taxi to Madison Square Garden because she had already spent Christmas Eve with us, and then she was going to spend Christmas Day with my brothers. But yeah, it's a work day, and
Yeah.
you're hustling and you're getting prepared, and then I remember after the game that time we jumped on a plane and went, I think, to the West Coast after that. So um, it's the lifestyle. It's and everyone thinks it's glamorous, and in many ways it is. But then there are other times where it's kind of like you look around and you go, everyone else gets a chance to really enjoy it and cherish it, and there are times where you can't. But nonetheless, there are trade-offs in everything and in every
Sure.
job, in every profession, and I feel very fortunate and blessed to do what I do.
You're also going to be really fortunate in the fact that you're with the Raptors organization, because of all the teams in the NBA, really, it is a nation's team. It's not a city's team. It's Canada's team. And no other NBA team can claim that.
Yeah, Ted, no, you're right. And I think the Raptors and the Toronto Blue Jays have something really special
Yeah.
because we are national teams. And there is an incredible passion and excitement that comes with that. That is incredible. Having training camp in Vancouver and Halifax and Quebec City and
Yeah.
Ottawa and Niagara Falls, and we actually had it in Buffalo a few times. We've been all, and then playing games in Edmonton and Calgary and Winnipeg and all across the country, Montreal, and it's just been incredible to be able to go across the country
Yeah.
and see the passion and the love that fans across Canada have for basketball.
The only other comparison I can think of is the Raptors and the Jays are loved right across this country by everybody in Canada. And then you got the Leafs, who are hated by everybody in this country except for people in Toronto. So there's kind of a proximity.
It's a good point you make because, as you know, the people in Winnipeg can't stand the people in Calgary, and the people in
Yeah.
Calgary can't stand the people in Edmonton, and
Yeah.
Vancouver can't stand Ottawa. So it's a regional sport, hockey. Whereas in our country, in Canada, having one baseball team and one basketball team, it's really unique. And I give the Raptors a lot of credit. I think the Jays have done a better job of late. I think they were a little slower to embrace it. But I think the Raptors have done a great job, and I see it now with the Jays too, of really embracing the national identity and the
Mhm.
fact that all the games are on national television.
Yep.
And to me, that's a big deal. And there's a lot more reach, there's a lot more potential for it. So it's great, and I'm happy to be part of that.
Did you play basketball as a young kid a lot?
Not well. I did though. There's a big difference between
Yes.
playing, participating, and
Uh-huh.
playing.
Yeah, yes,
So
there is.
early on in life, I grew up playing against a guy named Chris Mullen, who was in the Basketball Hall of Fame, who was a great, great player at St. John's and played in the NBA for years for the Golden State Warriors, the Indiana Pacers, and he was the general manager of the Warriors for a while, coach at St. John's, and now is a broadcaster. But I grew up from the time I was 7 years old playing against him. And early on in life, you figure out that guy's really good,
Yeah.
and I might have to do something else for a living. So,
Yeah.
so at a young age, I figured out that maybe coaching was my calling, and it worked out pretty good for me. I've had two careers in this, Ted. One as a coach, and now another one as a broadcaster.
Yeah.
And I always say this for kids when I speak. I can't thank that orange ball enough. I fell in love with that orange ball when I was 7 years old. I'm 59 now. So for 52 years, that ball has brought me joy, fulfillment, friendship,
Yeah.
camaraderie. It's taught me great life lessons. I've been able to travel a lot of places. I've met some amazing people, all because I fell in love with something. And, I always tell young people, for them, that might be a paintbrush.
Yeah.
It might be law, medicine, social work, uh, song, dance, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
But find that thing you love, and you'll never feel like you work a day in your life. And I feel that way.
Jack Armstrong is my guest. He is the analyst on TSN's Raptors broadcast. Your first coaching assignment came while you were a student at Fordham University. You coached the junior varsity team, correct? I'm not even sure exactly what a junior varsity team is versus senior varsity team. Explain that to me.
Well,
I didn't
was
get that far in education.
No, nor did I. Grade school was the best 11 years of my life, Ted.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, okay.
I was an assistant at Fordham, basically. So our varsity was all our scholarship players, Division One. This is NCAA Division One, and then I was the assistant with that team. And then we also had what we called a junior varsity team, which was basically guys that were walk-ons that weren't on scholarship. And then also our younger players that were on scholarship, if they didn't play in a game, I'll give you an example. If we played St. John's and we had two freshmen that didn't get into that game, they were then eligible to play in a JV game.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a developmental thing, kind of like the G League to
Right.
the NBA now.
Okay.
So then we would play like in New York City, Columbia University, the Ivy League school. We would play Columbia on the varsity level every year. Or we'd play Princeton for another one, but they had a JV team, so we would play their JV team, and I was the head coach of that team, and then we'd have a regular varsity game, and I was an assistant then for that game.
When you were coaching at Fordham, at the same time you were studying, and you grabbed your master's degree in communication, but you said one time in an interview, and I hope I'm not misquoting you, is you took that course because it fit in with the basketball schedule.
No, that's a fact. I was literally sitting in the library with our players. I used to run study hall, and for our freshmen, and then the other guys that their grade point average, if it was below a certain grade point, they had to go to study hall 2 hours a night, 5 nights a week. And I ran study hall. So I would basically sit with these guys, and I would work while I was doing it, and I'm saying to them, they're all, I'm obviously around them, so I kind of know what classes they're taking, and I said, how do you like him? I said to two of our players one night, how do you like? Oh man, I love it. This is what we do, and this is what we do. This is what we do. Because I was thinking at the time, maybe you're going to law school, getting my MBA. I have a bachelor's in history. I can tell you when the War of 1812 was, Ted. That's about what I remember.
Within a year.
So I just said, hey, so I started investigating all this. And then I realized, the only major that kind of fit our practice schedule was communication. So I said, you know what? I have no interest in it anyway. I'm going to be a basketball coach my whole life.
Yeah.
But heck, they're paying for a master's. I'll do it. And now here I am in my second career in communications. So go figure. What a country.
What a great story. What a great story. So you move on to Niagara University where you were the head coach.
Yes.
And is it at that point do you become the youngest Division I head coach?
I was 26 years old when I was the head coach at Niagara. And for the first 4 years as the head coach at Niagara, I was the youngest coach in NCAA Division I basketball in the United States.
Right.
And at that time, historically, one of the youngest coaches ever. I know Bobby Knight was 25, I think, at West Point. PJ Calissimo, Rick Pitino, I think they were both 25 when they were the head coaches at Wagner and Boston U, respectively. But, those guys are Hall of Famers, and I'm a knucklehead. But nonetheless, at that time, I was, one of those young guys that was given the opportunity. And thankfully, I ran with it. And each year we got a little bit better. And the good fathers at Niagara were very good to me and supportive of me at a young age and took a chance on me.
Were you a strict coach? Let me ask you this. How would you compare the demeanor and personality of Jack the coach and Jack the broadcaster today? Were you the same kind of guy with the players as you are on TV?
I in the off season, I would say I was more like I am now. In season, I would say I was more intense, fiery, accountability, challenging. I would say I was always holding them accountable and challenging them to be better, particularly academically and
Right.
personally. I wouldn't say I was strict, but I would say I was firm and fair.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer as common sense overrules the rules. So I think I was one of those guys that I think a player felt like they could talk to most times. In some instances, I failed, as we all do. But I tried to, always have an open door, and more importantly, get up off the chair and walk through the door and go get to them and spend time with them and try to kind of find that understanding and that collaborative partnership that you need to have with people,
Mm-hmm.
and not like, hey, I'm the boss and it's my way or the highway. There are times where you have to be that way, but you also have to always leave a little bit of a crack in the door. So I feel like, I'll say this, Ted, I feel like my personality now in what I do is more my natural personality, whereas the stress and the competitive nature of the job of coaching sometimes gets you to a point where you look and you have like those out of body experiences and say, wow, was that me? Uh, but that's what the fear of potentially losing your job
Yeah.
and the stress of winning and losing and the competitiveness and the pride that you have in it and all that's at stake does to you. And I see it now, and I'm very respectful and cognizant and appreciative of what coaches in basketball, whether in hockey, football, whatever. It's a hard job.
Yeah.
Ted Wallison returns in a moment.
Have you been tasked with the role of a state executor, or expected maybe in the future you will be? Well, if so, let me make your life a lot simpler by introducing you to my friend Debbie Stanley. Debbie is the founder of ETP Canada. They specialize in estate administration. Their goal simply is to help Canadian executors understand their role and how to deal with the loved one's estate. Let's face it, there's no school for this, but ETP Canada offers services such as executor support, estate accounting, and they have a new online course called Executor Ready. It's an engaging video designed to make estate administration easier and affordable. And those are two comforting thoughts during a stressful time. So call Debbie Stanley at 1-866 309-0387. That's 1-866-309-0387. Or you can get her at info@etpcanada.ca. That's info@etpcanada.ca. Hey, if you're looking to restock your wardrobe, maybe you should consider my friend Tom Mahalik at Tom's Place. He is the inflation fighter, and right now they've got incredible deals like Lipson shirts. I love these shirts. Regularly up to $225, now only $66. Designer suits are regularly up to $599, now between $179 and $279. And if you're looking for a nice sports jacket, valued at up to $695, well, they're 50% off. Tom's Place and Kensington Market. They're located at 190 Baldwin. Check them out. They are the inflation fighters.
Now back to Ted Wallison.
So while you were coaching at Niagara University, you meet this sweet young lady who's coaching soccer, who you eventually marry. That's a great story.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point about, I can't thank that Orange Bowl enough. If my basketball journey doesn't lead me to Niagara, where am I now? Who am I with? And I'm blessed that that journey led me to Niagara, and I had the opportunity to meet my lovely bride, Dina, who I'll be married to 30 years in next June. And she was a Division I coach in two sports. She was the head coach of women's soccer, and she was also the women's basketball assistant. So she's been there, done that. She understands the stress and the ups and downs of competitive sport.
Yeah.
She's still a big sports fan, huge Buffalo Bills fan.
As are
she
you.
watches, as am I, and she is a passionate fan. She has been getting up. We're taping this today during World Cup, and she gets up every morning at 5 a.m. to watch the matches. She's that intense about it.
Has she turned you into a soccer fan?
I'm more of my kids played, so I'm more of one of those, kind of stand on the sidelines and watch. And if the game's on, I'll sit and watch it with her. But I wouldn't say I understand all the nuances of it. I know the basics, but I wouldn't say, handball and offsides and all that fun stuff, corner kicks. But I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I'm an expert at it, but I enjoy it.
Okay, that's cool. So 25 years now working with the Raptors organization, broadcasting. How did that all come about? What was the transition and how long was that period between Niagara University and your appearance here in Toronto?
Well, people always ask me, how'd you get into broadcasting? I always tell them, I said, I got fired. you know, it's like, don't tell anyone, Ted, but it's like sports version of white collar crime. They put unemployed coaches on television. It's the greatest scam going. So, so literally I left Niagara in March of 1998 and I was hired by the Raptors in the fall of 98. September, October of 1998. So I had already gotten hired. I had a year left on my contract in coaching, and I said, I'm burnt out. I need a year away from it. So I had a year to kind of hang out and kind of do a little sabbatical. And I got hired to do a lot of different college basketball television networks in the U.S. And a friend of mine just happened to tell me, he goes, do you realize that Toronto Raptors, how far you live from Toronto? I said, about an hour and 20, hour and a half. He goes, they have an opening right now. They need a radio analyst. I said, wow. So they hired Chuck Swirsky and I 25 years ago to be the radio play-by-play team. And, Chuck left 15 years ago to go to Chicago, and I've worked on television with Matt Devlin, who's awesome, who I used to work college basketball with prior to working in the NBA with him, and also then doing radio with Paul Jones, who's fabulous as well. So I don't do radio anymore in terms of play-by-play. I just do the games on TSN TV now, which is great. I love it, and I really enjoy what I do. I'm sitting here on chat with you today, and then I have a game tonight here in New Orleans.
Yeah. Are you friends with any of the players, or is that kind of an awkward position to be in?
I think I've always had positive relationships with guys. Friends, I would say more acquaintance because I don't think you spend 12 months a year with them. But I mean, I look back on my relationships over the years with Chris Bosh and Del Curry and Muggsy Bogues and Alvin Williams and Matt Bonner and Jose Calderon, Lucas Nogueira, Corey Joseph, DeLon Wright, Norm Powell. I mean, you name it. I mean, just a great bunch of guys. And Jonas Valanciunas, who I'll see tonight here in New Orleans, who's a beautiful guy. And our current players. Obviously, with the pandemic the last few years, it's been a lot harder to get to know the newer guys. Sure. Mm-hmm. So I'm starting to get to know them. But obviously, OG Anunoby and Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, Chris Boucher, those guys who've been around for a while, knowing them and getting to know them and the people in their life. So that's cool. And then, in time, getting to know the new guys that we have.
What was it like being part of the team when they won the championship? They're world champions. I mean, I think there's still some people in the United States who are in shock that that a Canadian team did that. That must have been like surreal.
Ted, it was amazing. It was surreal, and it was almost like an out-of-body experience when they won it. You're like, really? This just happened? I'll never forget. I'm back in Toronto like 2-3 days after the Raptors winning the title. I'm out for a run. And I run by a guy with a T-shirt on. It says Toronto Raptors 2019 NBA champions. I'm like, that did happen. That's amazing. And then you go like 2 days later to the parade, and it was just an absolute whirlwind. Well, you know what? Joyful experience. I
was watching, and I can't remember who. It was sometime in the last couple of years ago. I don't know if it was an NFL team or a baseball team, and they had a parade after winning the championship. And they're talking about the crowds were just massive crowds. I'm thinking, wait a minute, we had 2 million people in Toronto lining that parade route. Nobody does that.
No, it was remarkable, and people came from all over the country to be there, and I hope before I retire, I hope maybe to see another one. And by recommendation, though, to the city of Toronto, the next time is to make sure you have guardrails. Because the people were coming out onto the street. You got to have, so that would be, so hopefully maybe for the Leafs or the Raptors or the Jays, the next time around, the parade will be a little more organized. I think it was, but it was an amazing event. People were so excited. It was fabulous.
You mentioned that Jack Armstrong is my guest, that you live in Western New York, just outside of Buffalo, and you commute into Toronto for the games. Tell me what, in your opinion, is the relationship between the city of Toronto and the people of Toronto and the city of Buffalo and the people of Buffalo from a Raptors perspective, but not just exclusively from a Raptors perspective.
Well, I think from a Raptors perspective, it's the closest NBA team. So my friends that are in the basketball community in Buffalo, they love coming to Toronto to watch a game because it's the closest thing nearby, and it's fun, and it's a great city. Obviously, with the pandemic the last few years, it wasn't accessible, but now that's just a natural place for people from Western New York to go. Now, with the exception of when the Leafs and the Sabres are playing, I think there's a really good relationship in what do you want to call it, the Golden Horseshoe.
Yeah.
There's a respect level. When I first started with the Raptors, people wanted to know if I knew Irv Weinstein and Keith Radford and and Van Miller, because as you know, people in Buffalo, you're able to get some Toronto channels, and then the folks in Toronto and the GTA are able to get the Buffalo TV station. So,
Yeah.
so to me, there's a great connection between it's interesting growing up in New York. And you look over and you say, well, there's New Jersey. And I think in Western New York and Southern Ontario, you don't really look at it like that's another country.
Yeah.
It's more of that's my brother, that's my sister, and it's more of a shared experience, a regional mentality of that we all live in the same region, and
Yep.
there's a camaraderie about it, and it's funny. Like I'm a Buffalo Bills season ticket holder, and at least 30% of the fan base is from Ontario.
Sure.
And there's a great connection that you see all the time. So if I fly in and out of the Buffalo airport, close to half the people flying in and out of there are from Fort Erie, St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, you name it.
For sure. And there is a history prior to the Raptors between Toronto and Buffalo, because Buffalo had an NBA team back in the 80s, I think, for about 7 or 8 years. And they played a handful of games over the course of 2 years at the old Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto.
Yes, you're right. The Buffalo Braves, they played in the late 70s, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. And then they moved there. Now the LA Clippers, they moved to San Diego. Yes, so they did play in Maple Leaf Gardens. And so there is a tremendous connection between the two cities, basketball-wise, sports-wise. But more importantly, I think from a social perspective and a respect perspective, there is a great camaraderie there.
Yeah, for sure. A couple of things that I have to ask you before I let you go. Hello, where did that come from?
Hello.
Sounds like a bizarre question, doesn't it?
No, it's not at all. Hello comes from when I was growing up in New York, and I'm not being sexist. I'm just I'm answering your question. When a pretty girl would walk by, you'd go, "Hello!" Like, wow, I am impressed. So now what I do is when I say hello or bonjour, which is obviously the French version of hello, when I see something that impresses me, I go hello or bonjour. And then get that garbage out of here comes from playing on the schoolyards of Brooklyn, and someone blocks your shot, and usually the words and the adjectives that they use are not for family television.
Yes.
So I can't. So get that out of here.
Yeah.
So instead, I use garbage.
And the city of Toronto and whoever came up with the idea, it was a very, very clever idea. When COVID hit, they took your expression, get that garbage out of here, and put a line through the word garbage. And in fact, there are sweatshirts and hoodies, etc. It said, get that COVID-19 out of here. Did you catch any flack for that because from the anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers?
No, not at all, because we didn't do it in any way other than just to have some fun with it. And obviously, it wasn't a fun time, but nonetheless, I think if we can't laugh at ourselves, who can we laugh at? You
Right.
know, but that really wasn't that big a campaign. The campaign, though, that you mentioned about um, definitely the campaign that you mentioned about the city of Toronto with the recycling, that was clever and
Yeah.
that was brilliant. And I thought it really went over well. It was funny. I'll never forget one night, Kyle Lowry walks up to me before a game. He goes, "I can't get away from you." I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, "My
Yeah.
wife and I went to the movie theater last night, and before the movie started, they had a PSA with you telling me to make sure I recycled, get that garbage out of here,
Yeah.
city of Toronto." So it was clever, and it was a good play on words, and for a good cause, obviously recycling.
Yeah, so it was the city that came up with the concept of using get that garbage out of here in order to encourage people to keep garbage out of the recycling bins. Get that garbage slash COVID-19 out of here was just a merchandising thing on your part, so the city wasn't part of that?
The city wasn't part of that one, and
Okay.
I honestly don't even know who came to me on that one. But they said, "Would you mind?" I'm like, "No, go ahead. If that can help get the message out, let's do it."
Yeah. Now, I got to ask you a question. I saw a picture of you the other day, and you're sitting there, and it's in Toronto, and you're wearing this fur coat with teddy bears on it, and I believe it was Drake's coat. What was the deal with that piece of apparel?
Well, you have to ask Drake about the
Yeah,
apparel.
okay.
As a joke, he stood up. He had taken the jacket off and he literally handed it over to Matt and I. And then, of course, I'm always up for a good time.
Yeah.
I put the jacket on, and Drake's like, "Oh man, you're looking good, Jack." So I wore the jacket for the entire first half of the game. Now I'm not going to lie to you. I was drinking green tea. You're indoors, and you're wearing a mink coat. That was, it was hot.
Yeah.
By halftime, I said, Matt, he's like, "Oh, you got to wear it the whole game." I'm like, "There is no way I'm wearing this coat the whole game." And plus, the referees and the players are looking at you like,
Yeah.
what has gotten over him?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was amazing. And then you find out the value of the coat is astronomical. I was joking; it's worth more than my house. But
Yeah, no
Drake,
kidding.
it's funny. Drake is a lot of fun. He's got that twinkle in his eye, and he gets it. He understands that we're in show business, and he's always up for the laugh. And that's what I like about him. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He's a very accomplished artist, as we know, but nonetheless, I like people that don't take themselves too seriously.
Yeah. The album is called Hellooo and Happy Holidays, with the proceeds going to the MLSE Foundation and the Special Olympics. It's on Comedy Records, and it's available wherever tasteful music is sold.
I like that. That's very good. I like that, Ted.
I've been pumped about having this opportunity to chat with you. I thank you very much for taking the time. I know you're a busy man. I really, really appreciate it, and all the best to you in the coming year.
Thank you, Ted. All the best. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. All the best in 2023.
And thanks once again to all for listening. And if you do get a chance, click on the follow button, and the podcast will always be there for you. And also, if you get a chance, go online and fill out your organ and tissue donation card. You could change or even save a life. Have a great week.
The Ted Wallachin podcast has been brought to you by Helenda's, the Meat People. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortinos, and Foodland locations. Helenda's, the way sausage should taste. And Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. The Ted Woloshyn Podcast is produced by Joey Roselli. Technical production by Paul Gatt. Music by Bike Thieves. I'm Becky Coles. Submit your questions and comments to ted@twmedia.ca.